Good afternoon, folks. Welcome to the online user group for looking at the food and beverage. We'll be trying to highlight some functions or tricks that you may not have been aware of. The phones are muted, so if you have any questions, please use the chat function. The question, if it pertains to what we're talking about, I'll try and answer it right there. If not, we may wait till the end of the session when we have an open Q&A section set aside. These sessions are being recorded, so the presentation slides and the video will be available on the Jonas website for everyone, probably within a couple of weeks for us to get it published on the website, but they will be there for you as well. Okay. So the first thing we're going to look at is a report that's been in the system for some time. Just a lot of people aren't even aware that it's in there, and it's the F&B revenue analysis. And it'll give you summarized sales as well as cover reporting. It's very simple to set up. It bases the report on report group. Most clubs are using report groups, but if you're not, it's a higher level categorization for your point of sale. So you have your items linked to your categories, so appetizers, entrees, soups and salads, sandwiches, that type of thing. This is a level above that. It might be, for instance, most commonly it would be food, beer, wine, liquor, non-alcoholic beverage. That is your reporting group. So each category would link to a reporting group. This report can also generate by shift if you have the shift set up. So it's basically just looking for two groupings for your report groups. Which ones are food, which ones are beverage. And that's all it's looking for. And then which sales areas. If you leave the sales area blank, it'll pull all sales areas in. If you want specific sales areas, then you can list them in this field, which ones you want to pull from. And again, if you're doing by shift, provided you have shift set up, it will then do that as well. So it'll give you month to date, year to date, today, and it'll give you cover tracking as well, average food per cover, that type of thing. Now, this is set up under point of sale system, sales and revenue reports. Oh, come on, sales and revenue reports, and it's food and beverage revenue analysis. User card swipe in. So this is a feature that's available to you that allows you to get away from having servers sign in on the point of sale. You can actually give them a swipe card to use to log into the point of sale. Now, that can be an advantage in a couple ways. One thing, it's very quick. So rather than the server having to punch in their code and hit OK and then get into the point of sale, it actually just is a single swipe and it'll take you right in. It also helps for security purposes. A lot of clients set up their servers with either their initials or a number, and their password is the same, which means there's almost no security on them. So if my code is 21 and my password is 21, people are going to know my code very quickly, and now holding me responsible for my transactions is going to get trickier because everyone has access to my code. So by using the card swipe, I could then set that server up with 21 as their access code, but I can create a unique password for it, which they wouldn't need to have. They are just issued a card, and the card is what they use to log in and out of the system to process transaction. It's done right under the user administration. So under administration, user administration, there's a box here for the barcode ID. Now, someone asked earlier this week, is this contingent on you purchasing the Jonas card writer system. No, nothing to do with that. Most of the clubs using this will just go to a third party and ask for 1,000 blank cards with just the key for Jonas is it just has to have a unique card number encoded on the magnetic stripe for each card. And then basically as I'm setting up new users or I need to replace a card, I just pull up the user, take a card out of the box, plug in that card code, and give it to them, and it's immediately available to be used. So it's very easy to implement, very simple to track. The one thing I will mention with this using cards is if you are using our Timekeeper module, then this card number needs to go into Timekeeper, not into the user admin. So if you're using Timekeeper, you can still do the same process, but it needs to be, the card number needs to be entered in under the Timekeeper staff field for the barcode, not under the user ID, because basically Timekeeper overrides the user ID. So you need to make sure you put it in here. You don't have to put it in both places, it only really has to go in here. But folks who do not have Timekeeper module, this will work perfectly fine. Hey, well, we've added a couple of new utilities. I believe it was 12.4, maybe 12.5 that these were added in. One is the ability to change a POS item code. Now, one of the problems used to be that if I wanted to change the code, say I wanted to clean up my coding for my items, and some people have set up codes with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Others say ENT for entree. Others say ENL for lunch entree. And I want to just make them more consistent. It was a bit tricky because you had to basically pull up the existing item, do a save as, give it a new code. But now you had to go through and change that on the menus. We wouldn't delete that item because there'd be sales, the old item, because there'd be sales against it. And I end up with all this deadwood sitting in my list of items. So this utility lets you change the existing item's code at any point in time. So you simply go in, tell it which item you want and what you want the new code to be. You can do it for multiple items, that's perfectly fine. Or as you see here, you can actually import it from a spreadsheet. So if you want to change all the coding of all your items, you can simply design it in Excel and then we can bring it into this change function. So I said you just tell it the old code and the new code, or you import it from an Excel spreadsheet. Now this code change does check across partitions. So it will check, so if for some reason you have another partition that's using that exact same code but for something else, it will change that code as well. And it will spit out a report of all the changes that it made on the system. Now there's also a couple of new reports that we've added in, and they're under manager functions, and they're KPI or key performance indicators. And you'll see two of them in there. There's a key performance indicator F&B and a key performance indicator retail. It's not really as clear as an F&B and a retail breakout. The big difference between the two is the F&B report looks strictly at point of sale. So as you see here, it'll give you sales, average per cover, and average per chit. The retail one will give you the sales, average per sale, but then average margin. It actually is going to pull from inventory. So if you're tracking your liquor in club inventory, you might also want to run the retail one as well to see margin analysis. This will display as gauges, cylinders, or thermometers. It will show you daily, monthly, yearly, and it will do comparative. So it'll show you if you're running it for today, this is what today is doing, this is what you did this day last year, month to date this year, month to date last year. You can export them, so you can copy them to a clipboard, you can print them, you can download the images. whatever you want. If you're using the 12.4 or higher dashboard view, these can be added in as widgets that display as soon as you sign into the system. So this is what they look like. They basically give you a little gauge and then bar graph, for instance, to show you what's going on. The green is last year and the blue is this year. You can filter it by area. By default, it reports on all the areas in that partition. But if I wanted to look at a specific area, say the members lounge, I can tell it to just report on that as well. The only other thing to be aware of is today, that gauge is based on current transactions. So as they process tickets, the today one will adjust accordingly. The monthly and yearly only adjusts after you run the end of day update. Sample Chit prep designs. This is just a way, if you've ever looked, we have quite a number of different Chit designs available in the system. Some are custom for specific clients. Even our standard ones, we have 4 or 5 different options. So if you wanted to see what they all look like, this sample will let you view them or print them without changing the point of sale for everyone else. So it's just a quick way for you to be able to go in and say, well, wonder what this design looks like, or this prep option design looks like. The key if you're going to do this is there must be at least one closed ticket on the system, because that's how it actually generates the sample. It asks for an existing ticket to use as the template to do it. So you basically tell it which ticket, and then you can pick which design, and you can basically print it or view it to see what it looks like. Change sales category setting. This allows you to make a global change to certain fields in the sales category. Not all fields, but just certain fields. So if you were changing something, say the item group that you're tracking on the club management side, or I wanted to change the tax table that's being used by the categories. It used to be that you would have to go into each category one at a time to change that linkage. This will do that for you across multiple categories. So when you come into this screen, these are the fields that you can change. So you basically just click the box for the field you want changed. So in our example, we want to change the tax code that the categories are using. So I would flag this box and tell it what I want the new tax code to be. As soon as I click proceed, it will then ask me, well, which categories do you want to make that change to? Because it may not necessarily be all of them. Say I'm only want to changing this for my wine, beer, and liquor. So then I could pick those categories in the list. By double clicking on them, it would move them to the right. Once you've selected which categories you want that change to take effect for, you can preview it, and then when you're ready, hit update and it will make the change. There's another utility in here, which is the change POS item price. Now, obviously you can change the price of an item right under sales item setup. That's perfectly fine. This is used more so when I want to make a global change to a whole bunch of items. So it might be rarely a set price, usually that I do right on the individual items. It's usually percentage or amount. So I want to change all my beer by 2%. And you can reduce it as well as up the price. So, or I want to change all my appetizers, add $1 to all my appetizer prices. So basically when you come into this screen, you're just going to tell it, first of all, what do you want to do? So if I'm doing it by percentage, it'll open the percentage box and I tell it what percentage I want it to do. If I do amount, then the amount box opens up and what amount do I want to add to each of the existing prices. Now, these two fields are going to come in handy in this utility because let's say that I've decided to change all my beer prices by 2%. I'm going to raise them by 2%. So I set this amount, I set this to 2, but I actually don't want that price change to take effect until January 1st of 2016. So I can set it up here and then I can flag price change and put January 1st, 2016. So that will trigger it to make the change at a future date. It will also handle special pricing if you're doing special pricing. For folks who haven't looked at special pricing, the idea behind special pricing is if I have this pint of Guinness that it sells for $4 in the members lounge, but if it's sold at the pool, it's going to be $3.50. Rather than having two separate items, you can have one item, and then under special pricing, you can dictate if it's sold in this area, it's this price, and if it's sold in this area, it's this price. So the idea behind special pricing is to eliminate the need for having multiple items. You can have one item and derive it by which outlet it's being sold in. So if I'm changing prices, I can also change it based on the special pricing as well if I need to. Just like with the category changes one, as soon as you click proceed, it won't do it. It'll actually now ask you what items do you want this change to take place for. So I can either just pick the items I want, the specific items, or I can pick the category. So in my case, I wanted all beer. I could pick the beer category. It would then list only the beer, and I could click all to move them all to the right-hand side. And then again, I can preview it first. If everything looks good, then I can hit update and it'll actually do the update for me. Maintain bar recipe book. This is a recipe book that comes included with the point of sale, and it's basically about 300 drinks and how you make them, the ingredients and any special tricks for making them. This is an open database, which means you can add your own stuff to it. So if you have a country club margarita, you can actually put the recipe in here so everyone knows how that should be made. You could put food recipes in here. If chef wants to put in recipes so that other people can look them up, that would be fine too. You could even go to the extreme of having member-specific drinks. So Mr. Jones Martini must be extra dry with 3 olives in it. And you could have something in here called Mr. Jones Martini so that anyone could look it up if needed. The servers and everyone access this from the point of sale. So when you're in a point of sale ticket, you can click on options at the top and you will see this bar recipe book, which will take you right to the database. Now we're going to talk about the loyalty program. The loyalty program is built into the point of sale. It's not an extra module. It just comes with the point of sale whether you use it or not. The loyalty program, like a frequent flyer program, is basically can be tracked points for every dollar spent or dollars for every dollar spent. When you're setting this up, it's something that you will need to get accounting involved with because there is a GL impact. Not so much with the points, but definitely if you're doing dollar per dollar spent, then it needs to have a liability account where that money gets stored and gets relieved from when they use it. There needs to be a revenue account when they expire those at the end of the season where they go into, that type of thing. Okay. Now, you also can have multiple loyalty programs. So it's rare. From the ones I've done, most of them have one loyalty program per department. So food and beverage might have its one loyalty program, golf might have another, and tennis may have a third. But within each area, they don't have multiple loyalty programs. Though you could, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. But for the most part, they tend to be one program per place. This settlement allows you to dictate which settlements earn points. One that I've done recently, they did not want member charged, so any purchase that the member charged to his or her account did not earn points. But if they paid by cash or credit card, yes, it would. So you can dictate which settlement methods earn towards the points or don't. Now, when you're setting this up, you can set up the points or dollars based on the category or based on the specific item. And obviously you can get very fine-tuned with this, and you can dictate that only these items will earn points, and you can only use them to redeem on these items. So it's up to you how you configure it. Perfect example here is where basically this grid is based on per dollar spent. So here in this example, we're saying that every dollar spent on an appetizer will earn them 10 points. However, they must have a minimum of 100 points to use it against an appetizer. Now, most of the ones that I've done with loyalty program, they tend to prefer doing dollars for dollars rather than points for dollars. My understanding is it's more from the membership standpoint because the members find it easier to understand the dollars per dollar spent. The only thing I would mention in that is one client did this and they put in, it's appetizers, they get $1. Well, you're basically saying for every dollar, if they spend $10 on appetizers, they get $10 in loyalty points. That's usually not what you want. So normally, most commonly what you would want is for every dollar spent on appetizers, I want, say, 0.10. So I want 10 cents for every dollar they spend. And then for the points redeemed, if you're doing dollars, you can say 0.01, which means if they have 15 cents in their loyalty points, they can use that right away the next day to pay off against an appetizer. Now, it doesn't pay for the whole appetizer. Obviously, they have to pay the difference, but they can use it immediately is the idea. Or, like we did with the points, you could set a threshold. No, they must have at least $10 in loyalty dollars before they can use it to offset the purchase of an appetizer. There is full tracking and inquiry, just like with credit book, gift certificates, and cash cards. In the loyalty program itself, it has an inquiry which will show where they've earned the points and where they've used them. This lookup can also be added to the point of sale. So just like the credit inquiry button or the credit book inquiry, gift certificate inquiry, there can be one for loyalty so that they can look up their loyalty earning. Now, enrolling members, you have basically the ones I've done, most of them do all members, which is basically if you're an active member in the club, you're automatically in the loyalty program. But I did have one client that basically, no, it was for up to the member. If they wanted to join the loyalty program, they could enroll in it. We can do either. If you're going to enroll every member who's active, right in the loyalty program, there's a way of enrolling members by their status. So you can say all active members, enroll them in the loyalty program. If you're going to do it ad hoc, so as they request, you can do that right on the point of sale. You basically would have a button right in the point of sale that says enroll in loyalty program. So you open a ticket to that member, you hit enroll in loyalty program, and the system starts tracking their points or dollars right from that point forward. Suggestion and reminders. This is a field or a message box that's aimed at the servers, and it pops up when they're closing a bill. So a lot of people get a laugh out of this one because, as we all know, asking for the guest's or the member's signature as you're closing the bill is usually way too late. The member's long gone at this stage. But it can be used for anything that you want to remind the server about. Did you remember to change the coffee? Did you reset the table? Did you give the member the loyalty program when they sat down? Did they get a copy of the whatever it is? So it will pop up as they're closing the ticket, and it'll be a yes/no question. If they hit no, it will not close the ticket. It'll take them right back into it. Now this function I do recommend you turn on if you deal with cash transactions. If you disallow cash transactions, you only do cash and maybe the odd credit, or you only do member charge and the odd credit card, this won't be of any advantage to you. But if you're doing cash transactions, it's worthwhile activating this flag. This is under point of sale, system administration, terminal setup. It's by terminal. So if you have 3 terminals in the dining room, you'd have to make sure this is set up for each of those terminals. Basically, the system was always programmed to prompt you with how much change was due from a cash transaction. So if I have a $4.89 bill and I give you a $5 bill to pay for it, Jonas would pop up on the screen and say, you owe 11 cents change to this person. What this flag does is go one step further. It'll still display it on the screen, but it will actually print it right on the receipt as well. So for the guest or member, they have exactly what was given and what they submitted, what was given back. Also for the servers, if they're balancing at the end of the day, this is handy so they can go back through and review what cash was taken in and what was paid out. Now these next couple of slides, we're going to talk about table functions. Now, these are functions that have existed on the system, but a lot of people aren't aware of them. And the idea is that for a lot of clubs, if I've got 4 members sitting at a table, a lot of people would open a single ticket at that table. They just arbitrarily pick a member at that table, open the ticket to them, and all the order goes on to that one ticket. They send it to the kitchen as one bill, and then at the end, if they want to split it up, they can use item split or even split to do it. These table functions allow you to handle that a lot more cleanly and without having a single ticket, which makes it easier for the server as well. So using these functions, basically you could open in that same scenario 4 separate tickets to that one table. And that makes it easier from the server's standpoint to monitor who gets what, and obviously when it comes at the end of the day to splitting the stuff, the tickets are already there, so it's a lot easier. So one of the first options you have, or functions you have, is new chits. So this new chits by table, basically if I'm on a ticket at a table, I can hit this button and it will open another ticket at the same table. So without having to get out into the normal login procedure of the point of sale, I can actually just immediately open a ticket in that table. Other chits, same idea. I can hit other chits and I will see all the tickets at that table, and I can switch to one of the other tickets. So if I'm putting drink orders in, I don't have to get out of the ticket if I have 4 open. I can actually bring in the one ticket, hit other chits, grab the next ticket at the table, and continue on. This is misnamed. It shouldn't be move chit, it's move items. So this allows you to move items between chits at the same table. You cannot move items to a different chit at a different table. It has to be within that table. Send chits, this is the big one. Even though I have 4 separate tickets open at that table, if I use this send instead of the standard one, it will send a single prep order into the kitchen rather than 4 separate ones. Member charge, effectively that will send out and close every ticket at that table that's linked to a member. Now it obviously pays attention to whether or not that member is allowed to charge, And obviously, if it's not open to a member, if it's a cash ticket, it will not close it. You still would have to close that manually like you normally would. Now these can be set up either as buttons on the menu or on the toolbar across the top of the point of sale. So they can be put either place or both places. If you're using table layout, then in that case, obviously if I have 4 tickets open at that table, I can't show all 4 on the table, so you'll see something called multi. And when you click on the table, it would then list all the individual chits at that table. So this is the other chits thing we were talking about. So if I'm on a ticket at that table, if I hit other chits, it will then list all the other tickets that are at this table, and I can switch to any one of them by just double clicking. Move items between the table tickets. Again, I can move an item across any of the tickets at that table, only at that table though. Okay, check chit integrity at end of shift. This is something I always recommend gets turned on. The idea behind this is some clients have been experiencing this where tickets will go missing. Servers cannot locate it, managers cannot locate it, so they'll open a new ticket, but then when the office runs the end of day update, that old ticket suddenly reappears. It's getting lost somewhere. Now, unfortunately, there's a number of things that can cause that ticket to go missing. It could be a network issue, it could be a problem with that individual machine, it could be a glitch in Jonas. But it used to be a bit of a nuisance because servers would be missing tickets, they'd open new ones, and then the next day the office would run the end of day update and find duplicate tickets. So to eliminate that, if you turn this on, then every time somebody, it doesn't matter who, runs an end of shift report, the system automatically reconciles the tickets to make sure there are no missing tickets or orphan tickets out there. So it's a simple flag to turn on, and I recommend you do it. So it's under the point of sale parameters. So if you go to point of sale system, system setup, system parameters, and it's options, and I believe it's settlement options. Nope, I tell a lie. It's under end of shift reporting. Check chit integrity at end of shift. Member status discounts. You are able to set an automatic discount at the member status level if you want to. Most clubs tend to use a button discount, so there's an item discount or a flat discount or comp button right on the point of sale that is directly linked to a general ledger account, and they work perfectly fine. The big difference between the status one and the normal discount buttons is those discount buttons require the server to remember to hit them in order for the discount to take place. The status one is automatic. The server doesn't have to do anything. As soon as I open a ticket to that member and ring in the items, the system automatically discounts them. Now these discounts are set up under the status rules, so you'd have to go to Club Management, Club Setup, Member Status Rules. And then on the right, there's a POS discount, which would allow you to set the discount. We do it by category, so if it's across multiple categories, you will have to set it for each category. So you basically just tell it what percentage discount you want for that category, and it can only be percentages. We can't do it by amount. You can make it valid for a specific date range if you want. So if this discount I only want in effect from, say, December to the end of January, I can set that date range, and this discount will only happen during that date. NA basically means it's going to be in place until someone removes this discount completely. And then which GL account do I want that to go into? Okay. So as we talked about, you've got item discounts and discount comps that basically are linked into a specific GL account. If you're trying to use the markdown button, a lot of clubs don't like the markdown button from the accounting side because that missing revenue is not accounted for on the general ledger. You can use the markdown and you can tie it to a general ledger account. The difference is the markdown is the general ledger tie-in is designated at the sales category level rather than at the actual button level. So if you go into the sales category, there's a field for the GL for the revenue to post to, but then the next column is where the discounts go when processing the markdown. If this is blank and I mark down that item by $5, that $5 is not going to be accounted for on the chart of accounts or the financials. However, if I have an account in here, it will get posted to this account as a write-off. Now, this can be an expense account, or for some clubs, these markdowns, they want it to actually hit against their revenue, so reduce their revenue. So I could have the revenue account here, and it would automatically debit the revenue accounts for me. Now this next one gets a bit confusing, but bear with me. There are some clients that track on their general ledger non-member sales versus member sales. So they might have two food revenue GL accounts, one for non-member food sales and one for member food sales. And a lot of clubs that do that, they're doing it by having two separate areas. So they might have, dining room member food sales, dining room non-member food sales. That's obviously a bit awkward because then the server has to change the sales area every time for it to drive to the appropriate account. This is a way of doing it without having the server make any changes. You don't have to have separate areas, and it's like the status discount. It's completely automated. Now the way we do this is through something called a reallocation table in the point of sale. And that reallocation table is linked to the member status code. So what you end up doing is creating a reallocation table. This is misleading because they've set it up as non-member. Normally the reallocation table would be member. So under your GL sales category, that GL revenue account should be your non-member sales account. And then in this reallocation table, you would tell it, no, I don't want you to use the non-member sales for these members. I want you to use the member sales account. So once you create this reallocation table that links the general ledger, you can then attach it to the member statuses. So my active member or golf member or whatever it is, I can then attach this reallocation table, which means it's now completely automated. So if I open a ticket to a member with this status, it knows to use those GL accounts. If I open it as a cash transaction, it's going to use the ones that are on the sales category, which are my non-member transactions. If you're tracking it that way and you want to institute this, this is one of the ones that I would recommend you talk to Jonas support first, because it might be something that you need a bit of assistance on to make sure we get it configured properly for you. Special Chit messages. So you always have the ability to put a standard message at the bottom of every single ticket that the point of sale spits out. This is going to appear in addition to that standard message, but it only shows up on the ticket if that particular item has been purchased. Okay. So in this case, this is something they're promoting a new wine or something. a new brand of wine and they're offering a draw for it or something. So I only want this message to appear if this particular item has been purchased on this bill. So you set it up the same way you set up the standard message. You have 99 lines of text you can set up. But in the sales item setup, you now link that message to it. So if this item is on the bill, they'll get the standard message, but then they'll also get that item specific message showing up. Now the alternate chit design. This is not so much that you want a different design in a different area. That is perfectly fine. It's a simple setup. This is more along the lines of, in my dining room, I want the breakfast and lunch tickets to be my standard chit layout, but for dinner I want a completely different layout to be used. So you can do that. Basically, the first thing is under the point of sale profile, this is my main chit program that's going to be used for breakfast and lunch, but then this is the alternate one I want it to use when I'm doing the dinner tickets. Now, unfortunately, it's not automatic. So what happens is, in order for the system to use this alternate design, you actually have to put a button on the point of sale. Normally, obviously, it would be the settlement screen, and the server would have to hit this button in order for it to print the alternate chit design. Somehow I don't think that's a chit design though. So basically you set up a button, a function button called print the chit, and you simply flag it to use the alternate design. So then the server would have to hit that button and would print out the different receipt that you wanted. Now, history reorder. We always had a chit history function, and folks that have been using it know that if you hit that button, you open a ticket to a member and you hit the chit history button, you see the last 30 purchases of that member, which can be handy for tracking, what does this member order all the time? So what is his favorite drink? What is his favorite appetizer? That type of thing. This does the same thing, but with two big differences. First of all, it goes back 91 days, but also I can add any item from the history to today's ticket. So I still get the tracking that I had with the regular chit history, but now if he wants the same chicken salad sandwich, I can actually click it from the history and move it onto today's bill. So if I pick that chicken salad sandwich, it'll bring all the same prep options over. So if I know he still wants it on rye bread with mustard, American cheese, and onion rings, I don't have to input that. I can actually add it to today's bill and send it to the kitchen. So very quick way of processing it. Email. You are able, if you wanted to configure it, to email the chits or the receipts to the members. You do not have to print them. You could trigger it to be emailed. Now, it's a bit of setup involved, so it's not something that we would expect you to do on your own, because you have to make sure you have Gmail. It has to be set up and configured to be able to handle this. And plus, obviously, you have to design the email. Now, the actual chit goes out as a PDF attachment, but you'll want the body of the email to say something like, "Thank you for eating at the club. Please find attached your ticket from last night," or whatever it is. So, but you can configure the system to do that if you want to get away from printing receipts. And for some clubs, this is big because, as you know, this is the biggest problem for most clubs is the members don't get their receipt. They're getting up and walking out. So one of the things you can do is to help with that is to fire a copy of it to them. Now, it doesn't help you with the signature process, but at least it's a quick trigger for you. You can also launch programs from a point of sale button. So for some reason, let's say I'm using a third-party dining reservation system that's loaded on this computer. I can have a button on the point of sale that actually launches that other program for me. You may find this because if your terminal is set up as a point of sale terminal, you know that you cannot minimize Jonas. It's very difficult unless you have a keyboard to get back to the Windows desktop. And that's done on purpose. So you could, if you need them to run certain programs, you can have it as a button that just launches that program. Now my understanding is this can also be a web address as well. So when they click on it, it launches into that website. Okay, and that's it from the food and beverage. Does anyone have any questions? And it doesn't have to be about the food and beverage side. It can be about anything.